Let's do a quick review of this last week. As the echoes of Trump's foreign policy decisions reverberate far beyond American borders, most critically in Ukraine, of course, where the battle for survival continues, um, and continues in spite of the dwindling Western support. So the gravity of the situation cannot be underestimated, and and therefore it's important to call out the uh, the positives where they exist. Lewis Goodall, for example, on LBC, is and the unflinching stance of the Ukrainian soldiers, in defiance of the Trump loyalists and the absurdity, for example, of J.D. Vance's complaint that President Zelensky doesn't say thank you enough. This alone has been met by the ironic yet deeply tragic response of Ukrainian soldiers standing in front of Patriot and Hawk air defense systems and recording their gratitude in videos aimed directly at the American public. They express thanks not just for the weapons that have kept them alive, but for the idea that the West stands by them in their struggle for sovereignty. Too little, too late. The cruel reality looms. These defense systems are running out of missiles because Trump has cut off the supply. The point is, this wasn't a present. It wasn't a present. This is part of a treaty. And a treaty isn't something you don't have to be grateful. No, people are grateful. You don't have to be constantly on your knees thanking the American system for upholding the treaty that it signed. The treaty, the agreement. Not only the agreement in the Budapest Memorandum, but the subsequent agreements set out by Trump and Obama and Biden. And beyond the symbolism of gratitude, these videos are thinly veiled pleas to a fraction of the American political class that appears intent on appeasing Vladimir Putin. Cutting off intelligence sharing has deprived Ukraine of vital early warnings of Russian airstrikes. Within 24 hours of the decision, Russia launched a massive missile and drone attack hitting crucial infrastructure. And this isn't just by accident, it's a direct consequence of Trump's policy decisions. And meanwhile, voices of resistance remain, and in Britain, LBC has exemplified journalistic courage in challenging Trump's enablers. There was an interview, I talked about this the other day, with Dr. Jan Harper-Haynes, a former Trump transition advisor, collapsing under the weight of basic scrutiny, attempting to rationalize Putin's war while deflecting blame onto NATO expansion. Complete rot. But if that's what is being whispered into Trump's ears, then it's not that surprising Trump is acting accordingly. When pressed, she refused to acknowledge the moral depravity of Russia's actions, instead attempting a weak historical revisionism. The moment she realized she couldn't obfuscate her way out, she walked off air. This is the moment we need more of. Journalists refusing to let bad faith actors rewrite history in real time. Yet while media accountability is crucial, it doesn't solve Ukraine's pressing military crisis. The stark reality is that the United States' decision to cut military aid and intelligence support has emboldened Russia. And Trump's administration is treating military aid as a bargaining chip, attempting to force Ukraine into a ceasefire under terms dictated by the Kremlin. And there's a fundamental flaw in this plan, isn't there? Russia has no interest in peace. Putin has made it clear that his goal is not a settlement but a complete subjugation of Ukraine and the erasure of Zelensky. Despite this, Europe has finally begun to acknowledge the need for greater self-reliance in defence. Macron's recent statement about extending France's nuclear deterrence and the EU's renewed commitments to military production are steps in the right direction, but these are long-term plans. These don't solve the immediate problem of this week. Norway has doubled down on its aid for Ukraine, and the Netherlands has pledged 3.5 billion euros in military assistance. The UK is ramping up drone supplies. Even Latvia, in a brilliantly poetic act, is donating confiscated cars from drunk drivers to support Ukraine's logistics. But this is not enough. Europe must fully commit to rearming itself and Ukraine rather than simply issuing strong statements. In the end, Trump's MAGA movement, rather than being a force of American strength, is actively working against Western interests. It seeks to appease Putin, to undermine NATO, to force Ukraine into submission. Yet, as history has shown time and time again, authoritative regimes, authoritative ambitions are never satiated. If Ukraine falls, Moldova is next. The Balkans are next. The Baltics are next. The credibility of Western alliances will be irreparably damaged. So, while LBC does its duty in exposing Trumpist delusions, the West must do more. The free world cannot afford to abandon Ukraine. The time for cautious diplomacy is over. Europe and its allies must put their money where their mouth is, arm Ukraine to the teeth, and ensure that Russian imperial ambitions meet an unequivocal and humiliating defeat. And that can be a negotiated defeat, believe me. But it's not going to be a negotiated defeat if you give Russia all the advantages even before they get to the table with Zelensky and with Ukraine. Trump is a fool, aided and abetted by these boys, Vance and Musk. He's an old man in his dotage who is flattered into stupidity. And we've seen that before. Shakespeare wrote a play about it. It's called King Lear. It doesn't end well.